Story 1. I stopped caring about things I cannot control and put all my energy into the things I can. It sounds hard, but there is actually a lot you can control, and that does not leave much room for the other stuff. Story 2. I got injured in a rear-end car accident. I lost my business, and my wife of 19 years eventually left for another man, leaving behind a 17-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. I had no job, no car, and no money. 2 kids and $2,000 a month in rent were coming due. 2 days after she left, I took my real estate license exam and passed. I had planned to surprise her, but had hidden that I was studying in case I failed. Either way, it was not enough, so I took a job at Amazon. I worked a graveyard shift while my daughter stayed home with my son. I also held open houses on weekends, hoping an unrepresented buyer would walk in. This still was not enough, so I signed up to drive for Uber and Lyft. I got a reliable vehicle from a family member at low cost and started driving. I switched from the graveyard shift to a day shift and drove at night. The money was okay, but I realized I could earn more by moving from Amazon to another large local company, which I did for about a year. Things were okay. I was making good money, and then Coldwell Banker fired me. I did not expect that, but I had never sold a house, so all it meant was I needed to switch to another broker. That turned out to be a blessing in disguise. A friend, on my way to sign with Keller Williams, convinced me to try a temp agency. I was skeptical, but I had nothing to lose. On my first 2 days, I was placed with Toll Brothers. It was fine. On the 3rd day, they sent me to a local developer, and my life changed. The broker of record and the local developer took me under their wing. After a few months, they hired me away from the temp agency, gave me a salary plus commission, and provided an opportunity to change my children's lives. I went from working 4 jobs to 1, and I learned more about myself than I ever imagined. It has been 3.5 years, and I would not change a thing. Story 3. When I was a teenager, I was homeless. Many places would not hire me because I had no experience or interview clothes. I went to the Board of Education and begged the human resources representative to give me a chance at any job. I told her I would scrub the school with a toothbrush if they paid me. They made me a general clerical substitute. I took a call for one of the schools in a rough neighborhood that others had turned down. I walked across town every day, so I had to start walking at 4:30 a.m. to be on time. I wore dress clothes from a church mission that were far too big, but I did my best. After 4 months, they gave me a long-term position, and then a permanent one with benefits. I saved enough for an apartment. Finding a landlord willing to rent to an 18-year-old who had been homeless was difficult, and I started college. I have not been homeless at all in the past 15 years. I even have a house now. Story 4. I quit a job that was not making me happy and went back to college. Story 5. I am reading more and using social media less. I am almost at the point where I can delete Reddit. Story 6. I decided to stop comparing myself to my brother and focus on what I can improve. Story 7. I quit drinking when I was 24, went back to college when I was 26, and graduated when I was 29. Story 8. I paid off my debts slowly but surely and worked very hard to buy a house. Took years, but it was worth it. Story 9. I decided it was okay to put myself first, no matter what. I do not mean that you should cheat or lie for your own benefit. For example, I was involved with a toxic person for some time, and I was always the one compromising and making the effort. When things finally ended, I cut off all contact even though they wanted to remain in touch for support or validation. I felt bad and selfish at first, but I am starting to feel better now that they are out of my life. You need to be selfish if the other person is being selfish as well. Story 10. I left the cult. Edited to add, thank you for the awards and upvotes, everybody. Story 11. I realized there was more to life than constant partying and waking up hungover. I still think it is fine to go out and have fun, but do so in moderation. It is easy to get caught up in that lifestyle and forget what is truly important. Friends, family, and taking care of yourself. Story 12. Moving out of my parents' house. I lived with my parents, which is very common in India, until the end of medical school. I had been in my comfort zone all my life and had everything I needed. That led to depression. All I wanted was to live by myself and get out of my bubble. Now I cannot say I have figured it all out, but I definitely feel better. Story 13. Find a 1996 Honda Civic with a clean title and low mileage. Story 14. I heavily reduced sugar when I was 21 and started resistance training. 2 years later, I feel the best I have ever felt. I have so much energy and self-confidence because I actually like the way I look, and my clothes fit much better. Story 15. I gave Facebook, TikTok, and other social media a week off, then 2 weeks and never went back. Story 16. I started going to the gym. It helped me break out of psychosis induced by obsessive-compulsive disorder, brought me back to reality, and I have been going every day since. During the peak of coronavirus disease 2019, I had to replace gym sessions with exercising in the park. Story 17. Realizing I don't have to act like someone I'm not just to be liked by everyone changed my life and made me a much happier man. I wish I'd done it sooner, not in my late 20s. So much time wasted. Story 18. I grew up in South Florida during the beginning of the opioid crisis. From 2006 to 2011, things got pretty bad. In 2011, I sold my last possession, my car, for $800, packed 2 suitcases, and bought a bus ticket to Denver. I had never been to Denver and did not know anyone there, but recreational cannabis was starting to be legal and I did not want to miss out. I detoxed on the bus from Florida to Colorado. I do not recommend it. I was lucky to sit next to a man who was a grower and needed help in his garden. I did not know it at the time, but on the Greyhound he told me I had an 8-hour job interview. He helped me get established in Denver. Within 2 months I was sleeping on his couch and learning how to grow. I have not touched a painkiller since I got on that bus nearly 9.5 years ago, and now I am married, a homeowner, own a decent car, and work my dream job in the cannabis industry. It is not for everyone, but I went from being homeless and injecting drugs to living a life better than I could have imagined. Story 19. I started going to therapy. I slowly realized that I have to think about myself too. I started going to the gym, set boundaries, ate foods I liked, and every day I did one thing that made me happy. I finally got the courage to go back to school and study something I really like. Story 20. After being laid off from my last factory job, I suddenly found myself on the streets of Toronto in the early 1990s with a 9th grade education. No money, no friends, no job references, and almost no family. I found an unbelievably dirty crawlspace basement apartment and applied for welfare. I stopped drinking, smoking, and other unhealthy habits. I got a gym membership and trained 4 hours a day and jogged 5 miles every morning, weather permitting. I enrolled in an adult high school and ignored everyone and everything that would distract me. I earned my high school diploma with honors in 2 years and applied to university. I was accepted, moved to a different city, and spent 4 years earning a Bachelor of Arts with honors in philosophy because I like to think and solve problems. I applied to a graduate program and spent the next 10 years earning a Master of Arts and a Doctor of Philosophy. I then spent several years as a professor making good money and having a lot of fun. I will not detail how things are now. I have poor health and am no longer working. I will say that I am happy and know I would have ended up either dead or in jail if I had not done what I did all those years ago. Everyone must eventually take their life seriously. I took a nap and woke up to see 10,000 upvotes. Thank you for the awards and comments. It will take me a while to go through them all. I read through the comments and tried to answer some. Thank you for the kind things you said. Story 21. Quite recently, I deleted Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. I now only use Twitter and Reddit. I stopped making an effort for those who do not make an effort for me. I cut out toxic people in my life and surrounded myself with positivity and care. Story 22. I went from partying hard on weekends to partying every day, and I lost my job after failing a drug test for cocaine. It then escalated to methamphetamine and I hit a really low point. One day I had an epiphany and realized it was not what I wanted, and that I had seen other people go down similar paths. I actively sought help, changed friend groups, stayed home, got clean, and am now doing okay. I cannot say I am doing great, but my future looks better every day, even if only slightly. The addiction is still affecting me. Even after all this time, it has caused insomnia, depression, and anxiety. These are problems I did not have before using cocaine and methamphetamine. Story 23. I realized my quest to find love would not fix anything wrong with me. I stopped manipulating and using men to try to fill the void in my soul. I began treating men like people instead of tools. I fell in love and am married to the most wonderful person I have ever met. Thank you so much for the awards. Story 24. I was not happy. I lost weight, shaved my head, got tattoos, traveled more, and complained less. Everything I do is for myself. I have a long way to go. If I try to impress someone, it never lasts. You have to want to do it yourself. Story 25. I am taking vitamin D3 for a severe deficiency. I quit my job because my boss was verbally abusive to improve my mental health. Story 26. I refused to be another statistic and never remained complacent. I allowed myself to be uncomfortable and to enter scary, unknown territory for personal and professional growth. I have pets who make me so happy and motivate me to do better, so I can give them nice things like a big backyard and lots of toys. Laughing out loud. Story 27. Short answer. My support network. Without my dad, I would be dead. Now my fiancé is helping me learn to be happy. Long answer. I left an abusive home and went to university at 18. I got lost in a black hole of depression, drugs, and debt for 3 years and dropped out. I can't remember much of that time. Broke and desperate, I called my estranged dad. He helped me get back on my feet, gave me a loan, and supported me while I battled daily suicidal thoughts and worked part-time. Eventually, I graduated. Now I am 30 and my fiancé is supporting me while I go through therapy. I have some money in savings and we are talking about buying a home. Story 28. I had to move around a lot as a child and attended 4 different primary schools in the United Kingdom because of my dad's job. I was a hard-working, competitive student. I arrived at my final primary school in year 5 around 9 or 10 years old, and being the new kid while wanting to do well led to me being bullied. It was awful. People had always been supportive of my good grades and ability in the past, so I could not understand why these children were different. I tried to keep to myself, but they always knew how to find you, and people I thought were my friends were actually instigating things to harm me. I went to secondary school with a couple of guys I thought were friends and decided to reinvent myself and become a bit of a troublemaker in the hope that I would not get bullied anymore. I stopped caring about grades and paying attention in class. That eventually led to me skipping school in the middle of the day to play games in the town center. I was stopped by the police on the way in and they rang my mum, who did not believe them because I had always been so good before. She reacted angrily and made me move school again. After that, I walked a line between doing the minimum I needed to pass and goofing off to impress my friends and avoid being bullied, which did work. I eventually went to university and graduated with a degree in graphic design in 2009. During the recession, I did a few odd jobs and eventually landed a full-time design job in 2011 that paid very little. It was an in-house job with limited scope for promotion and a very small team. I had dreams of working for a game developer like Valve or Rockstar, but I never did anything in my free time to pursue that. Around age 24 or 25, I realized it was not right for me to lack passion about my work. I enjoyed my hobbies, but felt very unfulfilled day to day. I decided to go back to the drawing board and figure out what I wanted. Work with people, something public-facing, something more science-based and mentally stimulating. Medicine eventually clicked. I had always been interested in it from watching television shows and documentary series. I believed I was smart enough for medicine, but worried my past, no advanced level qualifications and a lower second-class honors degree would hold me back. I found out there were a couple of places I could apply. A hard entrance exam for people from non-science backgrounds was an obstacle, the graduate medical school admissions test, and I applied the first time without success while staying at my design job. At the same time, I started volunteering at my local hospital and picked up a part-time job as a support worker for an adult with learning disabilities. I was not successful that first time, but I knew this was something I wanted to do. I had become passionate about getting in, so I left my design job to become a full-time healthcare assistant at my local hospital. It was a baptism of fire and I nearly walked away early on. But I am glad I stuck it out because I learned an incredible amount from doing that job. We do a lot more than wash patients and change sheets. My second application with a better entrance exam result also fell short. My lower second-class honors degree was really limiting my options and making it more difficult to get into medical school. I decided to do a master's degree to open up extra options and make it easier. I did a full-time master's degree while working nearly full-time as a healthcare assistant and continuing my part-time support worker job. My employers were supportive and gave me fixed hours, so I could do university work Monday to Thursday and work Friday to Sunday on 14.5-hour shifts that I could not miss. Fortunately, the master's was straightforward and varied enough to keep me interested, and I wrote my dissertation on one of my other passions, esports. After I finished my master's, I applied again. I managed to just scrape in on the graduate medical school admissions test score and did well on the United Kingdom clinical aptitude test. I secured 4 out of 4 interviews and felt confident that at least one university would offer me a place. After 1 rejection and 3 waiting list responses, and eventually another rejection, I received an offer to study medicine. 3 to 4 years of hard work and experience had paid off and I was on my way to becoming a doctor. I cried with happiness in the toilets at work when I received my offer. I am now in my final year of medical school. I have passed all my exams on the first attempt. While I am not going to graduate with honors, I am pleased to have found something I am passionate about and to be fulfilling my academic potential. I was lucky to have supportive friends and family and not to be tied down to a mortgage or children, which would have made it even more difficult. TLDR, I was bullied as a child, neglected my schooling as a result, ended up in a career I did not enjoy, decided to change direction, and managed to get into medical school. Story 29. I forced myself to become a couch-surfing loser to reset my life. I was in my 20s with no job and not in school, living at my mom's place and spending any cash I could get while playing video games around the clock. My mom loved me unconditionally, which was good, but it enabled me because she would never throw me out. I realized I was a fucking loser and kicked myself out to become homeless, staying at my buddies' places until I could get a job and a place to live. Now I not only have a well-paying job and a nice enough place, but also a wife I love and 2 cats, and I have not turned 30 yet. I just needed to feel the hunger to realize I wanted more. Story 30. I will not say I turned my life around, but this is my story. I had a rather eventful childhood that ultimately led to me living on my own at 17. I worked 60 hours a week, including an overnight shift at a grocery store stocking shelves, while I earned an associate's degree, and then worked 40 hours a week while I finished my bachelor's degree. I got a job right after college, and a year later I was burned out, depressed, angry, and basically a mess. I was smoking weed and drinking a lot. I had a degree in accounting and planned to take the certified public accountant exam. The problem was I did not want to study. I would come home after work, not study, and then be angry with myself for not studying. I felt stuck because I was not making any progress but was not doing anything to make progress. This went on for about a year. I did not study, I did not enjoy my time because I felt like I should be studying, I made no progress, and I was unhappy. Finally, I realized I had 2 options. One option was to study. It would really suck because it would take a year of daily studying and I was still exhausted from college. But then I could pass the exam, make more money, earn more respect, get promoted, and move on to something else. The other option was not to study. I would not have to spend a year of my life studying for something I was not sure I could accomplish. I would make an acceptable amount of money, but I could not complain when I lost out on promotions or did not earn respect. Life would be fine. I would not be a terrible person for not becoming a certified public accountant, but I could not complain when I missed out on certain things. Whatever I chose was fine, but I had to live with the outcome. I apply this now every time I make a choice. If I do not want to go to the gym, that is fine. I just cannot complain when my body does not look the way I want, when a fit person gets more attention from others, or when I am more likely to face health issues. Again, it is perfectly okay not to be at the gym. I just cannot complain. Sometimes I do not go, but I no longer feel guilty because I made the choice after considering the consequences. Usually this thought process leads me to go. If you do not want to go to college or learn a skill, that is fine. Plenty of good people are uneducated or earn a low wage. Not going does not make you a bad person. But do not complain when you are less likely to earn a higher wage. If you do not want to stop smoking weed, that is fine. Plenty of nice people smoke weed. But do not complain when you accomplish little because you are high all the time. As long as you are not hurting someone else, whatever you want is fine as long as you can live with the outcome. I do not know what bad choices you are making, but if you keep making them, do not complain when you hate your life enough to ask how to turn it around. People often criticize this advice because it basically says you have to decide who you are going to be, but I am living proof that it is possible. I was going to do something bad to myself until I figured out how to do this. No one is saying you need a certain relationship, a certain lifestyle, a certain diet, a certain way of drinking, or a certain job. Whatever choice you make is fine as long as you are okay with the outcome. Action leads to outcome. You know what will happen if you continue taking the same action, so live with the result. Story 31. I met a really nice woman. She generously gave me far more compassion, kindness, and patience than a wretched creature like me deserved. Over time, she changed me. I put down the bottle, abandoned all my vices, and got clean. I could not have done it without her. I remain clean to this day. Story 32. By taking responsibility, I accepted that this life is mine and that I am the only one who can turn it around. I quit drinking, smoking, and other bad habits. I began training and counting calories to lose weight. 2 years later, I am healthier than ever. I am surrounded by people I love who love me. I removed all toxic people from my life, including some family members, and I am about to get married and start my own business. Story 33. Eating healthier, sleeping well, and exercising regularly have noticeable benefits. You feel more energized and motivated. Story 34. Sorry, I can't assist with sexual content that involves minors. I can help if you remove or change the reference to being 12, for example, to an adult age, then I can clean and edit the text. Or I can redact the sexual content and correct the rest. Which would you prefer? Story 35. I quit my job. In 2010, my job moved to a different city and I had to follow because the money was good, or so I thought. I worked 12-hour swing shifts with a 90-minute ride each way. The town was a total shithole and rents were crazy expensive if you did not want to live in the hood. I ended up working for net zero after bills, expenses, and child support, living in an apartment with no furniture. After 2 years, I had enough. I learned to day trade, put my savings into it, and doubled it in a bull market when everyone looks like a genius. Now that my kids are out of college, my bills are absurdly low. I learned to live cheap. I inherited a house and sold it. Now my investments are under professional management. I drove a forklift for a while, a cool gig. I know people do not like to hear this, but money is important. If your debt-to-income ratio is 100%, it does not matter if you are earning $500,000 or working in the food court, you are still broke. People would say, I wish I had those problems. But you really do not. If you are earning $5,000 a month, $60,000 per year before tax, and your bills are only $1,000 a month, you are doing better than the $500,000 earner who is struggling to afford a lavish house and unnecessary cars. He looks like a baller, but trust me, he is losing sleep. If that job goes kaflooey, he is in trouble. Presently, I could throw a dart at a map and go live somewhere, provided it is a second-tier city with low taxes. Learn to cook. Do not buy extravagant cars. I have not gone on vacation in 5 years because I am on permanent vacation. All that stuff adds up, and if I spend like a fool, I will have to go back to working somewhere to earn money to pay for things I do not care to own. More importantly, I would be chained to a clock and selling my remaining hours, which are finite. Or one morning I can just get up, call the realtor, put my place on the market, and drive to Idaho or Salt Lake City or Santa Fe and look for something else. That is the best happiness I ever found, being unchained from responsibilities and having realistic expectations for basic comforts. My ex-wife and her current husband spend way over $100,000 a year trying to afford an admittedly nice house, and they are miserable, always cash broke but trying to afford more, like expensive vacations, bird baths, and little windmills for the yard so they can brag to their coworkers about how well they are doing. Then they collapse on the couch and wait for the next workday and do it all over again in jobs they hate, 270 days a year. He is still going to be paying on that house until he is 80. One of the best things that ever happened to me was when my life turned to shit. The only true freedom you find is when you realize and come to terms with the fact that you are completely and unapologetically fucked, and then you are free to float around the system. Doug Stanhope. Story 36. My old school was terrible. My teachers were incompetent and were worsening my mental health issues rather than helping me. I ran away from home after a fight with my mother. I lived in a government institution for children and teenagers for 6 months and then changed schools. I am a student at a Christian private school now. It is not Catholic. That sounds worse than it is. I completed therapy. My teachers here really care about their students and want them to be well and happy. I changed my grades from an average of 4.4. In Germany, 1 is the best and 5 or 6 is the worst. My average is now 2.0, and I am back home with my mother. I have never been happier in my life. Story 37. I was always chubby while growing up. I had been yo-yo dieting for almost a decade. It eventually reached the point where dieting wasn't effective. I couldn't lose weight even though I wasn't eating much. I decided enough was enough and that I was going to beat that compulsive eating addiction. I remember walking into the kitchen, fed up with the scale, the food, and my body. I thought to myself, this is absurd. I'm not eating much, yet I still can't lose weight. I'm done with this. I toughened up. I cut out junk food, snacks, and irregular eating. Within 2 weeks, my body caught up. It's been 2 years since, and I am proud to say that I'm actually in love with the way I look. I don't even look perfect, but I'm content. I am no longer addicted to food and now eat intuitively. It's not just the food addiction, though. As soon as I got that under control, every other aspect of my life improved significantly. I just feel happier overall. Story 38. Stop having a victimhood mentality and start taking responsibility for my life once and for all. Story 39. There is so much positivity in this post. I cannot stop upvoting it. Laughing out loud. Story 40. I lived in Detroit. The skies were gray. I was laid off because management made an absolute mess of the merger. My next-door neighbor was murdered. I decided the city would be the death of me and my happiness, too. I sold the house, bought a van, and moved to Los Angeles. I went to school. Now I am doing some of the coolest things imaginable. I have had work published in several outlets, taken trips to the jungle, explored uncharted caves, met celebrities, jumped out of airplanes, and presented at academic conferences. I am now trying to get into a Doctor of Philosophy program in archaeology. That's it in a nutshell. Story 41. I realized I needed control of my life. I was on a bad path toward jail and was listening to a bad crowd. Jail or death were the paths in front of me. One day, while washing dishes, it dawned on me that I had more worth. I could do better than that. I now drive a tow truck and love it. I get to help people and bring smiles to many faces. I share a little knowledge along the way because I know a thing or two, but I tell people to take it with a grain of salt. I am not a mechanic, but it can be a start that may save them money. Story 42. Make it a point to think and speak positively. Negativity can really drag you and everyone around you down. Story 43. If your life feels like it needs to be turned around, there is often a desire at the back of your mind that you have ignored for too long. Could be anything. You must do one of two things. Either start taking realistic steps toward that desire, or accept that it is unattainable and stop dwelling on it. Either way, it is a step forward. Story 44. Content warning. Overdose. Death. I am a 24-year-old female. At the peak of my depression, I decided to give up and overdosed on a mix of medications, including quetiapine and tramadol. My last words to my best friend were, "You can have my computer," sent by text. After that, I took the pills, and she called for help even though I had not said what was happening. According to the paramedics, I was clinically dead for about 2 minutes. After waking up alone in the hospital, my best friend arrived and offered me a place to stay with her family. Over the past year, they have helped me grow and taught me life skills that my neglectful, narcissistic, homophobic parents would never have taught me. Story 45. I was a high school dropout in a dead-end job earning $30,000 per year. I found out my girlfriend was pregnant when we were only 20 and had visions of being a deadbeat. Broke dad who couldn't provide for a child I brought into the world. So I did a bridging course and went to university at 21 just as my daughter was born. I married my girlfriend at 24 and have since had 2 more children. I comfortably earn $200,000 a year, have a great career, and feel like everything just fell into place. Story 46. Leaving Tumblr. I had been brainwashed into an insufferable person, boycotting everything and launching tirades about inequality regardless of appropriateness. The herd mentality made me a bad person who thought I was always right. I am happier now that I left, and people actually enjoy being around me. I have friends again. Most importantly, I am enjoying the world without constantly attacking anything that is not a perfect utopian ideal. Story 47. After getting arrested and expecting nothing but getting high on something, I found myself sitting under a bridge with a group of friends, trying to scrape together money to buy drugs. A few of them were in their 30s, and I was a teenager at the time. After coming down, I made up my mind that I did not want to end up like them. I joined the military, met the love of my life, and settled in a different part of the country. I have a great career, a family, and I am still happily married. Finding a way to leave was the best decision I ever made. To this day, Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers is a very personal song that strongly resonates with me. Story 48. This is hard to write. I lurked for a long time before joining Reddit and only recently started posting. I was sexually abused as a child by a close family member, and everyone knew or suspected it. I didn't collapse mentally from the years of abuse. I put it away. I was able to go to school, make and then lose friends, and hold down jobs. As I went to therapy, I felt embarrassed that I had not made it. My schoolmates went to great colleges and have great careers. I went to college but dropped out. I was overwhelmed with shame for not being a lawyer, doctor, or some other respected professional. I am, and still am, an assistant. At first, I dodged the question when people asked what I did. One day last year, when I turned 43 after another therapy session, I realized I don't have to compare myself to former college friends or high school peers. I am okay. With everything I went through, I made it to the other side. Yes, I only had one boyfriend in my 20s and have issues trusting people, but I am okay. For the last year, I have been kinder to myself and have experienced more happiness. I don't know if this answers the question, but I turned my life around in how I feel about myself. I sometimes still beat myself up, but I'm able to push those thoughts away. Thank you for reading. Story 49. I took many psychedelic mushrooms, and they helped me stop drinking. I am working on everything else with an advantage these days. Story 50. I stopped using heroin at 23. I am 26 now, attending college and working full-time. I almost have an associate degree. Story 51. I felt that life was meaningless. My relationship with my family was not strong at the time, and I felt distant from God, so I thought dying was the best option. I was unsuccessful in ending my life, so I decided to give life another chance and try a different approach. So far, I think I am doing well. I regret the time I wasted, but moving forward and doing my best is my only option. Sorry, this is not a very clear explanation, but that is my story. Story 52. My girlfriend at the time dumped me to get back with her ex. I remember asking her why. She said she saw how hard I struggled with school and didn't think she could be with someone who wasn't going to be successful. After a couple of months of depression, I internalized her words and dropped out of school to focus on culinary work. I was already working in kitchens while studying business. I did very well, and now I run a successful meal prep business and do private dinners on the side. Story 53. A 9-year relationship ended in 2008. We had children and a mortgage. I was miserable. Then I found a book by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, which explains that the vast majority of our suffering is unconsciously created by us. I put the book's words into practice, and it worked. Story 54. I quit drinking. I have been sober for 8 months after 15 years of heavy alcohol abuse. Story 55. I used to play video games 6 to 7 hours a day, and I was depressed and overweight. I started playing basketball, took it seriously, and I have lost about 7 kilograms. I am just 13, but it sure did turn my life around. Story 56. In my late 20s, I went to art school but was not doing anything with it. I hit job dead ends and moved home to live with my dad. Bad move. I turned into a slacker. I could not find a job and my car insurance lapsed. I could not drive, so I rode my bike from my dad's house to the pizza place down the road looking for work. It was humiliating. I had to ride home on my bike in the dark in winter. When law enforcement raided the bar attached to the shop, they entered through the pizza place. The owner was the same. Agents told me they knew who I was and I was allowed to leave. As the bartender was arrested, I started bartending that night. It was winter on Cape Cod, so the crowd was local and tips were coins. I brought in a PlayStation, hooked it up to a large screen projection television, and made mixtapes to get music playing. It got popular. On nights with fights, I cleaned blood off the walls. I started going to the library to use the computer there. I bought computer magazines and read them on my shifts, highlighting words I did not understand to look up later. The owner would tease me, asking if I was going to be some kind of computer superhero. I drove my uninsured car to Boston at night on my days off to use my friends' computers at their design company. I practiced Photoshop and desktop publishing software until I could not keep my eyes open and slept under the desk. I left when they came in. A Boston friend told me her art department needed help and coached me to apply. She told me the salary to ask for. In the interview, I wore old Sunday clothes to look businesslike. When the interviewer asked what salary I wanted, I gave the amount my friend had told me. When she did not react for a long time, I almost blurted out, "I'll take less." She finally said, "When can you start?" After 3 hard weeks, I received my first paycheck of $2,000. I sat on the sidewalk and cried. I bought new clothes and insured my car. I kept freelancing, moved in with friends in the Back Bay, and slept on their sofa. A good friend in New York City called looking for Photoshop help. He said a company could use me but kept the name secret. I took the bus to Manhattan and got the job. It was Nickelodeon. I stayed with my friend in Brooklyn and discovered I did not like the stress of the show. I liked the information technology person they had and loved working on my Mac. He said a friend needed entry-level Mac support. I interviewed and got the job at an ad agency. I worked hard and read everything I could get my hands on. I moved laterally into jobs in publishing and advertising and met some of the biggest names in advertising across New York. I was placed at Polo Ralph Lauren, and when my manager left a backup running in the drives overnight and it overwrote the entire season's tapes, I became manager. The hours were long, but I loved information technology. I knew design, printing, scanning, and color management, so I could support artists and speak their language. I understood hardware, ergonomics, peripherals, servers, and Mac and Windows compatibility. Felt like college again. I taught Ralph's kids to use Macs at his house. The value-added reseller I worked with had a sales representative I got along well with. They had hired me and placed me at Polo. When I told him my story, he said it was amazing. A few weeks later, I received a box from him. Inside were business cards with my information and, printed under my name, Computer Superhero. Story 57. I lost 35 pounds. I stopped smoking weed. I stopped masturbating. I defeated depression. I drink a gallon of water a day. I stay active and burn 1,000 calories a day. I spend a lot of time with myself because I enjoy my own company and I am realizing how much I love myself. People who judge me are missing out on how good a friend I am. The things I still need to achieve are quitting nicotine and going to bed on time. Story 58. I did the hokey pokey and turned my life around. That's what it's all about. Story 59. Education comes first. Find a job with prospects and work your way up. Get a hobby and develop your skills in it. Eat well. It doesn't need to be expensive, but it should be nutritious. Work out regularly. It will benefit you in every way. from increased confidence to more life and career opportunities. Save steadily to get a down payment on a home. From there, you can build an empire. Rely on yourself. You are the only one who can truly help you. Story 60. I had dropped out of university because of depression. I was in a customer service job I hated, in a relationship with someone who treated me poorly, and I had attempted suicide a couple of times. I sofa surfed and drank a lot. My boyfriend and friends told me there was no point in going back to university, and I believed them. Then I met a stranger who I talked to about books. He told me he could not believe I had dropped out of university, because I was obviously passionate. The next morning I packed my things, left my boyfriend, and reapplied to university. Nearly 10 years later, I am a qualified teacher. I love my job and I own a house. I also married that stranger. Story 61. I made small changes every day. I woke up and went to bed an hour earlier, ate a bit healthier, read more, focused longer, and disconnected from the world, even if only for a brief moment. There is no instant fix for most things, but the small changes we make can, over time, turn us into completely different people than we once were. Story 62. After college, I got my first real job in information technology. I met a woman at work. She had a baby, but the baby's father was not in the picture. We married, bought a house in the suburbs, and a couple of cars because that is what I thought you were supposed to do. 2 years later, we were both miserable and she found comfort in the arms of another man. I was at a total loss. My marriage failed, my contract was running out at work, and I became very depressed. The turning point came when my father asked me who I knew who lived the furthest away that I could go visit. I told him I had 2 close friends living in Los Angeles and he said he would buy me a plane ticket. That simple act changed everything. I went to Los Angeles and had a blast with my friends, who convinced me to move out and live with them. I flew back home, filed for divorce, sold the house and the cars, packed up my belongings and left. That was 20 years ago. Since then, I remarried an amazing woman and we have 2 incredible children. I have lived in Los Angeles, New York City, and now Denver. I have traveled extensively, partied with rock stars, and laughed so hard it literally hurt. I cannot imagine what life would have been like if I had stayed with my first wife, if she had not cheated, or if I had let her convince me to stick around and be the father of her child despite her leaving with another man. I saw her once many years later at a wedding. She said she was sorry for what she had done. I told her not to be sorry and thanked her. Story 63. I got sick of my own mistakes. I stopped blaming everything else and took responsibility for my typically bad moods and attitude. I gave up anger and aggression cold turkey. It was either stop or lose the most important person outside my immediate family, who is a saint for putting up with it for so long. Story 64. At 18, I left a toxic home for a partner whose home I perceived as more stable. Over the next few years, I worked basic jobs, gained 70 pounds, bringing my total to 350 pounds, and did little to improve myself. I ultimately found myself in another toxic household. At 21, I opened up to an extended family member and asked for help. I only wanted a place to stay and space to focus on community college. That support led to a 4-year degree, a 170-pound weight loss, the end of my toxic relationship, more opportunities, my own apartment, and 9 years later, I am looking to buy my first house. Story 65. I know Reddit is very friendly to the trees community, but the day I stopped smoking marijuana was the day my life turned around. Story 66. My mother had me when she was 19. I wasn't planned. I was left with my grandparents while my mother went to festivals, and my father left. My mother got custody but was still young, so her brother, who lived with my grandmother and grandfather, helped look after me, took me to theme parks and let me ride on his shoulders. When I was 4, he killed himself in front of me in my grandparents' house. I had nightmares for years. When I was old enough to know what suicide was, it was the first thing on my mind. I thought that after my school exams I would kill myself, so I treated school like a holiday and failed many exams. After school, I took a large number of paracetamol tablets, vomited them back up, and could not bring myself to hurt myself no matter how much I wanted to. I am also afraid of heights, which made hanging impossible for me. I bounced between minimum wage retail jobs while trying to find ways to kill myself, but I never could bring myself to do it. At about 17, 2 years after finishing school, hanging seemed like the way to go. But as I was preparing, I got a call from my boss, who was worried sick. I cried and broke down for the first time ever. After that kindness, I stopped and decided to try to live a better life. I went to a doctor, was diagnosed with manic depression, and started medication. I worked cash in hand in a convenience store. I went to college. I am 22 now, and last Saturday I moved 200 miles from home to start university studying cybersecurity. This is the furthest from home I have ever been. My whole life has felt like a struggle, but for the first time it feels like an adventure. I take medication and I am getting better. Summary: I had a traumatic experience and neglected my life for a long time. I had a mental breakdown at 17, was put on medication, and I am now taking the opportunity to make something of myself. My boss saved my life and I never told her. Story 67. I stopped doing what other people told me to do and started doing what I believed was right. Story 68. 1. Recognize there is a problem affecting your goals. Finishing projects, being a better partner, and not feeling tired and unmotivated all the time. 2. Identify concrete evidence of progress, for example. Do the dishes every day, write 10 lines of a novel every day, and spend less time playing video games out of necessity so you can spend 1 to 2 more hours a day with your partner. 3. Seek outside help from a therapist, psychiatrist, or doctor. Friends and family can be tricky. They are not you, may not share your goals, and may not understand your situation. A loved friend might give advice that is completely wrong for you, and even professionals will not always be correct. Still, examine comments that feel strange or uncomfortable. They can be opportunities to grow. Seek advice, but evaluate it with curiosity and caution. Feel free to experiment. 4. Find a way to track goals daily. Missing every other day for a while is okay, but always return to your spreadsheet, notebook, or other system. I recommend duplicating yesterday's sheet as the first task so you can edit it for today. Include basic hygiene, short-term goals, and long-term goals. Start by reviewing each item daily, even if you do nothing. Then aim to do one small thing for each item. Trust that returning to the tracker will produce incremental progress. I overcame my video game addiction. Now I play by choice and some days not at all. I went from giving my partner an hour or 2 a day, often not fully present, to spending much more time together. I now complete about 40 tasks a day instead of struggling to finish 3. 5. Someone needs to hear this, you can do it. Adapt this advice as needed, but it worked for me. Be stoic. Some days you will fail, but any day can be turned around. If not, try again tomorrow. You are the hero and main character of your own story. Act like it. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.